So joining me now is Canada's Auditor General Karen Hogan. Nice to have you in studio. Thank you for being here. Now, when these programs, the financial programs, were created, they were done with a lot of haste. The government even admitted that they were basically flying the plane as they were building it. So, given all of that, was there a potential for them to actually put in controls to avoid some of this wastage back then?
So it's interesting that you brought it up. Going back to 2020, early 2020 is really hard for so many people, and it's important to go back and think about what we were living through at that time. And the government made a decision to adopt international best practices in the time of an emergency, which means that they limited the prepayment controls, relied on personal attestations in order to get support out to individuals and businesses quickly. What that comes with, however, is the need to have really comprehensive post-payment work, and that's where my concerns lie in this area. Is that they don't have a comprehensive, rigorous enough plan in my view, based on the fact that there was such limited prepayment control.
Now, there's a graphic that will show some people. The Canada Revenue Agency did manage to recuperate $2.3 billion in overpayments as of this summer. There's another $27.5 billion that you flagged that went to individuals and employers, and that's needing further investigation, including $15.5 billion that went through the wage subsidy program. Tell me why there should be further investigation here.
So what we looked at now was whether or not payments went to individuals, and if the government was doing the work they promised to identify if people and businesses were eligible. So we flagged that there was $4.6 billion that went to individuals who were ineligible. Most of those related to really up at the front start end of the pandemic, where people applied to two streams to get the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and received double payments, which makes them ineligible. So those are really clear. The rest is where we looked at all the other programs and other eligibility requirements and identified that at least $27.4 billion requires further follow-up. And that's because there was limited information gathered at the time of application, and now there is limited information available at the Canada Revenue Agency, and so they need to do the post-payment work in order to first determine if individuals and businesses were eligible, and then make the next decision about whether or not they take steps for recovery.
So you say at least, does that mean it could be higher than that?
Yes, we flagged in our report a few other areas where we just couldn't with confidence put a dollar figure around some of the eligibility criteria, and we've made all of those available to the Canada Revenue Agency. Now, there might be individuals and businesses that we flagged who are determined to be eligible, but without enough information, we couldn't really conclude. So that's why rigorous post-payment work is really needed.
Is it too late? Because the government has already said in response it would not be cost effective nor keep with those industry's best practices to try and pursue all 100% of the money that is flagged as outstanding. Do you think that this is a bit of a cop-out on the government's part?
Well, we're not recommending that the government follow up with every single individual or business that received funding. It's really those that have been flagged as having an indicator for ineligibility. When you limit your prepayment controls, which is typical in a support program, you usually have rigorous prepayment controls and then still do some post-payment work. But when you limit prepayment controls, you really do need to have that rigor at the back end. And we're just not seeing their plans and the work done to date being as comprehensive as it should be. Now, they do have a time delay. There is legislation that limits the amount of time when the Canada Revenue Agency can flag to an individual or to a business that they owe monies back. So they do need to get quicker on to their work.
We have a little bit of time left. I want to shift to the actual vaccines that you were looking at as well. We have another graphic for people here. At the end of the audit period, you found that Canada had upwards of 32 million doses, estimated at $1 billion in inventories across the country. It says that the majority of these are set to expire by the end of the year. Given that we have less than a month left in this year and in this inventory of doses, should Canadians expect that these will just now be unfortunately wasted, and that they were vaccines that we purchased but unable to actually use?
So in that audit, what we looked at was whether the departments worked together well, and we found that they did in order to ensure that the country had sufficient doses for every Canadian who wanted to be vaccinated to get vaccinated. We did identify that 32.5 million in inventory, and I asked the government what happened after our audit period, because it ends at May of 2022. And the government did tell us that some of those amounts have expired, some have been donated, and almost half of them were actually sent to provinces and territories. But there are other doses waiting to be donated that could still expire. So this just points to our recommendation and the need to put in all the functionalities around Vaccine Connect, the tool they use to manage vaccine inventory, in order to minimize wastage going forward.
Which you said was a good tool, but not effectively used.
Well, they didn't implement all the functionalities. They delayed it. And now that many of them are in place, they're still using their manual workarounds. And being able to have good visibility on needs and the expiry dates of vaccines would help minimize wastage in the future.
Auditor General of Canada, Karen Hogan, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate this.
Thank you.